USD. This is the ticker symbol for spot gold. And I do think that there's an emerging enormous opportunity brewing in gold. And so let me just share with you my thoughts. And again, I think right now we're looking at a real opportunity. So if you're on my elite list or my gold list, you know that I sent out a recommendation to get short at 1909 the other day. Got short right on the dime as it turned, and it looks like it's turning once again. So I see a couple of formations here, and then we're free to speculate which way this thing is going to break out. And I think it's going to break out to the downside. So we have this kind of descending triangle, if you will, right here, with the lower level being 1850. And then we also have a symmetrical triangle. And you can see now that we're starting to get to the business end, the mature end of this triangle. So you see we've been trading back and forth within the confines, and you can see that we sprung up exactly to the resistance area in the last couple of weeks. So this is a daily bar. Each one of these price bars represents one daily price bar. And you can see now that we kind of made a little bit of a high in tonight's session, and now we're going through the close. So whenever there was a question on how to enter orders and whatever, so I really take note on the relative closing price, and if something starts higher and then starts going through the close, that to me, especially within the context of what I'm looking at here, where I've got the descending triangle, this descending wedge, whatever you want to call it, and now these are somewhat neutral patterns. Markets can typically break out one way or another, but I think that we're going to have a move to the downside. I've said this for a while. I think that we're going to come back to this breakout area around 1750. Frankly, if I measure this triangle, we could even go lower. So, we have this descending wedge, and the top to the bottom is about what, $200. So if we say, let's say, take 150, that takes us to about 1700. So I think that there is enormous opportunity on the downside for gold. And we have a little inside bar yesterday. What I mean by an inside bar, you can see that the daily, let me change this. You can see that the daily range yesterday, from high to low, we have this inside bar. So now, we have perhaps an opportunity where we're looking at taking out these lows, which I think is around 1989. So that's what I would look for today. If we start taking that out, then I think this thing could really, unleash to the downside. I also see a small little head and shoulders here. Now, this needs to be confirmed, by going through this neckline. So again, a breach of this 1989, 1985 price level, I think, to my mind, is going to open up, all kinds of possibilities to the downside. And to me, this is where, kind of the big opportunity is right now. I might have said 1989. It's 1889. Someone just reminded me. So yeah, so this would be 1889 and about 1885. These are the areas that, if they start taken out, there's a lot below. Now there's a lot between 1850 and 1885. So we might have a little bit more bouncing around in that triangle there. But I'm, actually looking for this thing to uncork to the downside. And today's price action is, somewhat starting to confirm that. We have a bit of a, reversal right now. Who knows? We can keep checking back in it. But I do think that this is a fertile opportunity to the downside right now. Now, the other big pairs that I've been keeping an eye on are pound New Zealand and pound Australian. And we had, huge news out of the UK, which really, spiked these British pound pairs. It doesn't look as big on this one. We'll look at the pound New Zealand. You'll see the spikes a little bit bigger. The Tory victory basically assured maybe that some, allaying of anxieties over Brexit were whatever. But to me, the market is ahead of the news. And so Brexit was always in the background. But you can see, to my mind, I've been saying that there's a double bottom in pound Australian. I probably should have started. Let me just start with the weekly because it's, So we see all kinds of patterns in the market. The market throws us all kinds of looks, and then we got to kind of figure out, which ones are the driving patterns, the governing patterns. And to my mind, we had a triple bottom in pound Australian many years ago. We've had this kind of neckline around the 175. We've grabbed a foothold several times, and then you can see more recently, we grabbed a foothold right at 175. And for the last couple of weeks, I've been saying that I think that this is a bottom that's going to hold, and that means we're actually going to, we're going to go higher over time. Now, in addition to this double bottom, also see this kind of inverted head and shoulders, and the neckline is not too far. And the neckline is simply a line that is drawn throughout the entirety of the pattern. So we're basically there, about a hair from there. So, this will confirm when we go through the neckline around 184. But I think that, I made a video yesterday or a couple of days ago that sometimes the market just puts a stake in the ground and points in the direction it wants to go. And I'll take a look at that on the daily chart. So the weekly chart was telling us the last couple of weeks, despite the volatility, despite all the background noise of how Brexit may or may not be resolved, we can see now that the market action is starting to look like, we've got a bit of a bottom here. So again, not really technically confirmed until we take out this 184. And you can see we've got what looks like to be an inside bar, although we've got several hours before this session closes. And, if it remains an inside bar, I would simply just anticipate this and put a buy stop, somewhere above the high of, today. If it remains like this, we may still keep going higher, who knows? But to my mind, this is when the Tory victory was announced. Market made a huge thrust lower and then closed higher. I call these key reversals because they made a new low, close on the high, and point in the direction that it wants to go, consistent with the underlying pattern. So first I look for a pattern, some kind of, justification for, where the next direction is going to go. You can see in this, in this time frame, I was looking at this ascending broadening formation and predicting that this thing would drop because of the double top here. And now we have a double bottom. And so the market throws us all kinds of patterns, and now we got to sort out which ones are real, which ones are not. And this looks pretty real to me, but it's all right to wait if you want to wait for confirmation, penetration above, 184, some kind of pullback. And then, there's a lot of open space up here that, this thing can trade back into. Same thing for pound New Zealand, although it's been tough trading this pair. But, again, the weekly charts look intact. What I mean intact is that, we had a lot of volatility. We've had a lot of fleshing around. It's been really hard to catch this pair. But, if you're a patient long-term trader and want to put, wide stops, and in this thing you have to put really wide stops. But again, all comes back down to, we have a governing double bottom all the way in this time frame. We have a rounding bottom. Both of those patterns are shared by this kind of neckline around 180. And you can see what became old resistance now is new support. So we had a double bottom there. And then a couple weeks ago, I said the 190 low was likely to hold in this pair. And, for right now, I'm sticking to that. We have a bit of a key reversal going on. We'll see how this, looks by the end of the day. But right now, we are closing closer to, the high than the low. We'll see how this thing closes. And to me, the close is very important. So, if this thing rolls and, all of a sudden, we're trading down here by the end of the day, that would obviously change things for me. But right now, I think that, we're just consolidating here, and this thing could, continue to go higher. So Michael said, what would be your target for pound Australian? So, if this is a true double bottom, I think that this is, going to, keep going higher over time and perhaps retest these old highs around 205. If this is a bottom, then, the market should go higher over time. So yeah, I would not, this has been a, long-term downtrending market. But you kind of have a monthly resistance line coming along right here. So, you may have an attack to somewhere above, around 2000. But, yes, this has been kind of lower, lower highs and higher lows, and we formed this kind of symmetrical triangle. And you can see that every bounce has been along this support line. So, in fits and starts, that's kind of what we're doing. So now we're at the bottom end of the symmetrical triangle, and, I think we're going to have a good thrust. How far it goes, only the market knows. But I think, if we're putting in a bottom, then, as the word implies, prices should go higher. Gan says, I read on some site that says the more a support resistance line gets tested, the weaker it gets. How do you determine when it hold? Well, first off, I don't really yes, we saw, a nice resistance line here, or support line. So, first off, I look at the underlying patterns and, to see if it will hold. So, on the weekly and the daily, we had this double bottom that suggested that we would, hold for now. But if we kind of keep on retesting this thing, at some point, it won't hold if it looks like that. So I kind of look at, first off, the pattern and what are the drivers, and then determine how something's going to hold or not hold. So I kind of look at everything in a picture, and kind of form kind of an evaluation. Just like we did in gold, where gold is bouncing around between support and resistance. And now we're trying to decide, what's going to hold, what is going to hold and what's not going to hold. So, the thing is, if this is the, resistance line, and, at some point it just doesn't hold, let's say we get a false thing, then that could, indicate some kind of, breakout, where you kind of get, sometimes within these descending triangles, you get like two attempts at a low, and then the third attempt kind of stops short and then starts sneaking out. So it doesn't quite come to this low. And so, I kind of watch that. I kind of watch a number of things. How does the market behave? So what I do is I draw a structure and then form a thesis on how something should go. So, in fits and starts, this is kind of how I see this thing going. Now, what I think, doesn't really matter. Now I want to see what the market, tells me, do we start coming out here? Does this day all of a sudden turn around? So, I start with a certain thing, and then if the market doesn't, conform, if the market, because we also have, somewhat of a support line coming up here too. So we're really, anything could happen here. We could come down and sneak out and break out that way, or that way. So we're definitely at an inflection point, and then I just watch for the little clues. I watch for reversals. Now, this is a reversal right now, but if we start, going the other way, and start breaking out of here, then that will, certainly inform me of one thing. I mean, we do have kind of what looks like a very, kind of stubborn bottom here. So I'd imagine that, that it's not going to be like going through a knife like butter going through this 1850. So these are the support and resistance lines. And then I'm just going to kind of watch how the market, plays and operates, between these things. So I don't have a hard and fast rule. I just watch, first off, what is the price action, the price patterns that are leading, into a support and resistance. And yeah, it may be a resistance for a while, but, as we saw in pound New Zealand, pound Australian, old resistance became new support. So, it's kind of a nuanced, so gold is kind of cracking down to the lows. And I just think that we're going to collapse here. And Gan says, I read on some sites. So, the more times, if you hang around sites and forums, I mean, you should do everything you can to bolster your education, but, pick and choose where you get your information from. Gan, you are welcome for the explanation. So, yeah, so we're starting to crack here in gold, and I don't know, man. I think we're going to take out this low. Even today, looks like it. So I think there's a massive decline coming in gold. And I know I'm in a minority, but to me, I just look at the market. I don't have an opinion. I don't look at the Fed. So I just think that this thing looks like it's going to get wasted. So those are the pounds. So let me kind of circle back to the dollar. Usually take a look at the dollar index. I've been saying for the last couple of weeks that despite the fact that I think that long term, it looks like dollar index is going to go lower. Short term, we caught some support a couple of weeks ago. And so, this is where a little bit of confusion comes in, where you have to kind of pick what's going on, what's the prevailing thing. So, gold, the US dollar has been in a kind of an uptrend for 10 years. To me, there are certain signs that this uptrend, this long-term 10-year uptrend, looks like it's, got tired. During the height of the pandemic, we had huge sell-off, and whoops, to my mind, looks like it created a reversal pattern, double top, and then more recently a head and shoulders, both of which are negative. But then I saw kind of this key reversal a couple weeks ago, and I said, it's likely that this is going to keep the market in check for a while, and we could continue kind of dancing around here for a while. You can see that the dollar index is can go into these sideways kind of ranges for quite some time. So I would not rule that out, where we kind of get a thrust above this neckline, a retest of this neckline, and perhaps we play above here. Now I don't know if we get a continuation of this bull market and another test up here before we go down. It's entirely possible. But right now, it looks like, you know, the dollar's kind of caught a bid here, and looks like it's going to, you know, go higher. How high? I don't know. You know, back into this area, or, you know, maybe a retest of these highs somewhere here. So I do feel like there's support in a lot of these, you know, a lot of the pairs, especially the, you know, the euro. You know, I've been saying that I think that the euro is likely to retest 115. It still kind of looks like that to me. And this is the euro versus the US dollar index, US dollar, sorry. And, you know, we have been in a long-term decline, 10-year decline in this, actually broke out a little bit. So you can see these trend lines, how you kind of get these breakouts, but sometimes, you know, you get these traps, these bear traps or bull traps where all of the bulls are, you know, trapped above here. And now if we kind of re-enter the stratosphere again, you know, this will turn into a bit of a trap up here. So I do feel like there's going to be pressure on the euro from here. There were a couple of clues. And again, you can see how these key reversals, and again, for those of you who are new, what I mean by key reversals, I look very closely how a market closes relative to the high. So whatever a range is, a monthly range, a daily range, a weekly range, you know, if a market closes closer to the low than the high, as these two bars did, right as they made. So as it went to 120 that week, it closed on the low, indicating that despite the fact we made a new multi-week high, the sellers were in control by the end of the week. And so those two guys right there, that little subtle double top, you know, to me, you know, was telling us that this thing, you know, has topped and is going to roll over. You know, how far, you know, I don't know. But I think that, you know, we had, you know, somewhat of a breakout of, you know, an inverted head and shoulders. And, you know, been saying that it's very likely that we're going to get a retest at least, you know, of this, you know, 115 breakout. Now, you know, do we kind of circle back and out, or do we roll over? You know, that's going to be, you know, the question at that time. But I do think that looks like we're headed back to 115, 114 euro. And it just looks like all of these dollar pairs are, you know, going to be somewhat messy. They may have put in a bottom. You know, there's been some, you know, speculation by me that perhaps we put in a bottom in the pound. It's been in a, you know, long-term, like a decade-long downtrend. And, you know, the question is, you know, did we put in a bottom, you know, during this pandemic? Usually these big events are, you know, opportunities where, you know, markets put in a bottom, but I don't know, this still looks, you know, pretty ugly. You know, you have this double top that, you know, seems very profound, you know, just really stands out to me. And now you kind of, you know, said the 135 was the resistance area. Now, you know, we, you know, here again is your support line. So we've been, you know, adhering to the support line for quite some time. And now, I don't know, do we break out of it? Do you play the breakout? Is it a false breakout? Kind of hard to tell, but, you know, you kind of have this key reversal this week. You had a key reversal here, key reversal here. I don't know how much stock I see. Whenever I think about shorting something like this, I say to myself, look, you know, it's got to now clear through all of this price history on the way down. So I always visualize, okay, if I'm going to get short, what does that look like? Is that just going to clear through all of that? Possibly. You know, we'll see. But it does look like we've hit some resistance. We're sitting on this, you know, resistance line. And so, you know, any encroachment below this, you know, could open up, you know, another move back to 125 or so. So whatever way you look at it, but of all the pairs, I think the pound looks somewhat reasonably the strongest. So I don't know if I would, short that. Australian dollar looks like it's going to roll over also. How far? So this is, again, it's kind of a difficult thing because we've got a long-term downtrend. We've made a huge move off the bottom. It's hard for me to see that we're going to retest that low, but it does look like we're going to go lower. So, we have what looks like to be a double top on the weekly and the daily. Certainly the New Zealand dollar's got a beautiful looking, top on the daily. And so it does feel like maybe we come back to this area and perhaps, put on another shoulder here or not, or we just keep going down. But it does feel like this is starting to, look heavy up here at the 71, 72 area. Now, the New Zealand looks cleaner to me for the downside. So this is the weekly. You can see that we got to all of these resistance areas around the 68. And, again, an argument, and I've been looking at this thing and saying, this looks like it could be a head and shoulders. That's why we require a market to kind of confirm itself. And to confirm itself, it would have to kind of go through this 68 price area. So, if it turns around and keeps going and knocks on that door, it could open up, level there. But it's starting to look like it's, somewhat heavy in this area. I don't know. It may or may not happen. And so we got little head and shoulders here, but then this requires it to clean through about 65. So this thing is pretty jammed up. And, we're, have to speculate where it's going to go. But the daily has put in, what looks like a pretty clean looking double top head and shoulders. The thing is, it's got these rising lows. So, sometimes the market gives us an appearance. And this is how kind of, the market does throw all kinds of patterns at us. And now we got to figure out, if it's real or not real, because this looks like, a very clean double top and a head and shoulders. The only point is that this has kind of got, higher lows right now. So in order for this to confirm, you'd have to kind of come down here and go through the 65. So, if we kind of continue holding along these lows, then that pattern, while it looks like it may be something, will get busted. And when we mean busted, it means the implications of a double top are that this thing should go like this. And if it, on the other hand, keeps going like this, then the implications of this no longer, bind this. And that's why I look at all of the time frames, because, we see different things on different time frames. The weekly, I could make a case that this is an inverted head and shoulders, that this thing could go higher. So I'm, going to watch this carefully. If we kind of hold and we still have this pattern of, higher lows, then this isn't, this isn't consistent with what, I would think, out of this double top pattern. So New Zealand dollar is kind of jammed up. We have what looks like an inside bar. And, I'd be inclined to kind of short this low going into next week, but, we'll see. Now let me look at dollar yen. And it's, I've been saying that while this looks bearish, it's just kind of it's not really happening. But I think that eventually this thing's just got to break through to the downside. This thing's got so many bear patterns, and you can see that we're just coiling right now. We've had 3 weeks, very narrow ranges, just coiling up. And so, the question is, where is it going to uncork? Usually when we get a coil, to me, it's a compression. It's a suppression of energy. And, usually the market uncorks. But, the market's been pretty jammed up here. And to my mind, again, the driving patterns in dollar yen, have always been that double top head and shoulders, even though it was a long time ago. Then we have a couple of patterns actually, because this is actually a symmetrical pattern on the long term, and we have a descending, wedge kind of on the short term. So this 104, area is very critical. To my mind, I've always said that, for a market to sustain a rally. So, we have a kind of a double bottom here that, on the surface looks like it could give, rise to some, but what I have problems with when a market hits one level so many times. So, we've heard of, double bottoms, we've even heard of triple bottoms, but, I've never heard of, a market giving you 6 tries, to get in it. So if a market is good and it's going to go, it's not going to give you this many times to, get in, meaning that, I don't think that, this can lead to any kind of sustainable, thing on the upside. So I would certainly put a sell stop under this area, somewhere under here, 105.15 or something, just to catch this thing if it decides to, catch a move and start going down. So I think this coil is, it can only, coil for so long before it, kind of shoots out of there one way or another. And all of the driving, you can see that you have a double top in the near term. You have this head and shoulders. So, everything, kind of leads me to believe we're going back to 104. And if we go back to 104 for the 7th time, eventually this nut is going to get cracked. So let me look at a couple of the yen pairs that I've been focusing on. So this is the euro versus the Japanese yen. And again, when we're trading, we have to figure out what is kind of the price pattern that is going to govern the next direction, the next major move. And, right now we're looking at what could be, these double bottoms right here. So you say to yourself, well, are these the driving patterns? Are these double bottoms the driving patterns? The problem I've always had, and I've shared with you guys, is that, if you have a bottom, you don't want to, have these, lower highs, kind of this thing, double bottom should be, higher lows, higher highs. If a bottom's a bottom, then the market should go higher after that. And every time this thing looks like it's, put these bottoms in place, it's just been a fake out, because to my mind, the driving patterns, are these bear patterns right here in the form of this head and shoulders here and this double top here. So, effectively, we really kind of came to the neckline. We retested the neckline of this double top. And now it looks like the next direction to me is lower. It looks like we've kind of putting on this double top here. And if we clean through these lows around 122 or so, I think, it's going to, again, put the euro yen back in the direction, of the long term. So, we have a bit of a key reversal this week. And I would be inclined to put a sell stop underneath here. There is a bit of history here, so I'm always kind of afraid when I see some history in the way. I like to see kind of a clean thing, but I do feel that on balance, we're going to go lower here. I'll get to your question in a minute, Michael. So this is the pound yen. And again, to my mind, I had a lot of speculation in my mind as to, what was really going on here. Could we be in the, the throes of maybe a turnaround where, we had this bottom here and, this rising. But it kind of looks like this thing is kind of going back in the direction of the primary trend that was always indicated by this double top, this head and shoulders. So you can see we have a governing pattern that took place 5 years ago that has been governing. And again, for those of you who are new, this is a double top where you make a new high, you back off, retest the high, and then you have this M top. Now, in addition to that bear reversal pattern, you also had this head and shoulders, which look like a man or woman's left shoulder. The peak is the head. That's the right shoulder. So you have two. So these are your governing price patterns. And you can see that it led, once you, identified these bear patterns, it led to a huge, bear market. And then in the last couple of years, you've had this rounding top, and within the rounding top, you've had, this kind of double top complex head and shoulders. So to me, the weight is always on the bulls to prove that this is going to turn this thing around. And right now, it looks like this thing is going to break back in the direction of the trend, namely lower. So to my mind, it looks like we're going to retest and perhaps even take out these lows. I thought we might get another thrust up into 140, but I don't know. It's not looking that way. So we have a bit of a reversal here. I would, put a sell stop under here. Now, there's been a lot of volatility this month. Not easy to catch these trades. That's why probably trading on the weekly time frame, is the way to go. So you'll kind of get a clearer understanding of where the levels are. Because you can see obviously a lot of volatility. Although we have, a nice looking kind of key reversal here. So I don't know, betwixt and between. I thought we would get back into this 140 area. I don't know. Again, a lot of volatility in these British pound pairs. So, trade your risk accordingly. And that way, if you put a sell stop under the weekly lows, if it takes it out, it's probably pretty good. If this key reversal, you've got a couple of key reversals here. I don't know. It's just very difficult. You can see that trading by and large this month has been very difficult because of the volatility. I've got some positions in gold, so I just want to check what's going on here. Still sitting on the lows, so yeah, I think that we could really press these lows going into today. Usually by noon on Friday, I don't put any new orders, but I think if you wanted to put in an order here, play the highs, this thing looks like it, could still keep coming off. So, all right. So, Michael, want to look at the euro pound. So let me just circle back there. Euro pound is, I don't know, man. It looks like it wants to go higher. I mean, the driving pattern in the euro pound, has been a bull pattern that was established many years ago. And again, that's why we call them governing patterns, because they govern or dictate the price action, perhaps years into the future, as this has. So you can see this triple bottom or double bottom, once it broke through this neckline, it took off. But this has been, obviously a difficult pair, but, in a way, this has still been an ascending market. We had another double bottom way back here, and, we have been adhering to the support line. So again, going back to your question about support lines, to me, somewhat arbitrary. Sometimes they get broken. I look at kind of what is going on. But, sometimes if we start breaking the support, and coming through certain areas, then, it opens up certain possibilities. So by and large, we still have, higher lows and higher highs. But obviously a difficult market to trade. But to me, the bias, is still to the upside. We'd have to start taking out these lows or something for this thing to start looking like something else. But, we've kind of got this flag going on here. And, if we falter, it could, open up a path lower. It's a difficult pair to trade. Path of least resistance is higher, but, difficult to trade. So I kind of abstain until, I see something that, I kind of can put my thumb on. And, I've been kind of, again, I dig in the weeds and look at, price action. And we've got, again, a bit of this flag going on here. And this is how, I look to see, how the market plays within the confines of certain structure. But, within this flag, this price action, we've had a lot of key reversals. Made a new high, closed on the low, 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 right? So a lot of heavy price action. But, out of all of these key reversals, the market hasn't really shown a propensity to go lower. So if, but despite all of these key reversals, we start coming out of here above 91, then, to me, I take note of that. So these reversals should imply that, the sellers have control all of this time. And if the market starts, still, irregardless, taking off, and a thing, this is still, a bull market. It's higher lows, higher highs. And so I, will watch this channel very carefully. And if we start poking our nose out of 91 again, I would get long. So Duncan says he just took another short gold position. Calvin wants to look at Euro Australian. Let me kind of look at the weekly. So the more history you can look at, something, the better. And, this has been, also a market of rising lows, basically. So difficult market, but it looks like there's certainly a base and, a lot of space for this thing to kind of, move up into. So this all kind of suggests that the Aussie is going to start getting weaker. So, we certainly held here, if we revisit it, we'll see. This is a difficult one, but it looks like, this thing should start, going higher. You can see all the way back here, these kind of key reversals. So I kind of look at, all this price information going a long time back because, these are kind of guarding, they're standing sentry at, certain price levels. So if you're going to say, I want to get short, it's unlikely you're going to get through there. So, I think that this thing is going to go back higher. Okay, so I took a look at gold. Let's take a look at silver. This is the weekly chart. And again, I think that, silver seems like it's kind of looking tired. So we had this, big descending triangle. And you can see that the neckline, the breakout area, we basically rallied to the breakout area you know, 8 years ago. And now it looks like, we're forming somewhat of a, asymmetrical double top. We've got a bit of a reversal on a, this week where you can see it, made a high, looks like it's closing closer to the low. And, as with gold, I just feel that this thing wants to retest this breakout area around, $20. So we had this inverted head and shoulders driving pattern, which did its job. You took this bull thing, it, gave you a tremendous push. Myself and our members, hopefully you took my emails, made a lot of money on silver from 18 to 26. But I don't know, it just feels like, we're going to revisit 20 again. And, I was saying a long time back, when the market starts, thrusting, when you get this size volatility, it usually indicates that the market's over. Volatility, I mean the expansion of trading range. So you can see, how small, and these are weekly price bars from high to low. And then once this thing broke out, this was a $6 or $7 rise in silver. I mean, it was like a 40% rise in 1 week. And then you had another one. And then you had another one. So you were going up 30% a week, and that's obviously just not sustainable. So to my mind, and I, spoke my mind, when I saw this volatility, I started stepping aside and saying that, this was likely to indicate perhaps the end of that market. So I do feel that we're going to get perhaps a retest of that 20, and then, do we go up, or do we just kind of go back into this languishing thing that it's been doing for, many, many years? So I don't know. These metals start looking tired to me. All right, Hamish, hold your horses. I was just going to head into the stock indexes. So you can see, I mean, it looks like we have a classic looking double top here. Not quite so sure. So this is the NASDAQ Tech Index. We were trading within the bandwidth of this ascending broadening triangle. And then some time ago, we just broke out of it. And I think this breakout looks like it's going to sustain. I mean, we do have, what could be a troublesome area here. I mean, that is just a classic, double top that, we look back and, maybe it does that. But I don't know. Time will tell. I don't know that I'd get in front of this one just yet. Let's see how it closes today. S&P and Dow also have these classic looking tops right at the top of, their patterns. So both the Dow and the S&P have this kind of reverse symmetrical triangle top. It's also known as a megaphone top. So with the word top in it implies that that is the top. So I don't know. Maybe we could be looking at history where, it goes like that. I don't think so. But this is a formidable area. And now let's just see how price does, price resist, or does price, keep kind of, holding. So it's how price behaves at these areas that, to my mind, really dictates. So you can see here, you had, so the price really tells you what it wants to do. So you had this key reversal here. And if we go and we have another reversal here, that may or may not be, an indicator. Then it would just be, how does price behave? Does it look like it's this? And then all of a sudden it comes back and then it goes like that. So I look at how, price behaves around a certain price level. And I think Gan had a question, and maybe I'll answer it now. So let's see, let me read the question real quick. So again, who's one of our elite traders, said, should we place our orders as soon as we receive your signals or wait until a certain duration after the candle opens before placing it? So while I have this chart here and kind of this hypothetical price bar, and that is a good question, where and how to place orders, when I send them out. So let's say we have this double top, and now I'm, looking to short this market because, we have this perspective double top and we have these key reversals, although, the formidable price action of this. Anyhow, so should you place, a stop right after you get it? So let's say this is Sunday trading, and I say put a sell stop right under the low. What I don't want to see in Sunday trading is kind of the market just kind of opening from here and then just triggering you like right away. Now, in something like this, I mean, that may happen and it may be just good. But more often than not, what I really like to see is the opposite of what I'm looking for. So if I'm looking to sell it, I want to actually see this market actually open higher. And, if it keeps going, the great thing is my sell stop never gets triggered. And that's the beauty of that. If I'm wrong and I don't get, put in a trade, I just love those days. But what I'm looking for is confirmation. So you'll have to use a bit of judgment of where the bar closes, when, to get in. Obviously, the Asian session right away, they inflate the pips. The brokers kind of close down, and so you got to be, careful of when you place your trade. Not right after when the pip spread is 20 pips. But also, if it closes really close to the low of the day on a reversal like this, I prefer to to see some kind of action where it goes a little higher and then comes down and hits me. I don't want to have this thing open lower, put me in, and now I'm fighting this all of the next day. So it's a bit of a judgment call on how to put in order, and then where a bar closes. Now sometimes it's a little easier if the bar closes a little higher. So again, I would prefer to see some kind of action, even a little bit before it comes back down. But if there's a bit of a space between where it closes and the low, again, so I think that's the idea. About placing trades. I can't say with absolute, every trade is going to be a little bit different, but by and large, just use your judgment and don't rush to just sell something if it closes really on the low and then it opens lower. I would just kind of back off that, and you may miss a move where you don't place it and it goes. But by and large, if it closes on the low and then just opens really quickly down, I would wait. And then, so let's say in this, kind of instance, I put a sell stop there. The market kind of, just opens and keeps going lower. And you might just miss it. Let's say you didn't put it in. You might just miss it. But, then, let's say that it kind of comes back up. Now you could re-enter your order after you see that kind of action. But preferably what I like to do is I like to see the market build energy. So it's like a wave, kind of builds energy and then ready to go if that's what it wants to do. On the other hand, if it builds energy and then it keeps going, then you're not filled, and that's also fine. So hopefully that kind of answers that question. But it's obviously variable. So the Dow has got double top, but we're closing on the high. So typically when I, see, some kind of resistance and topping action, I want to see, a big, nice top. And this really doesn't have it. I mean, the path of least resistance is, still higher. You can see we've been going along this trend line. I don't know if I put much stock on that trend line, because even if it comes through here, it could be a false thing before it goes back. So that's the answer to that trend line. Some of them, mean something. And, again, you have to look at the weight of this move. It doesn't look like it's just going to turn on a dime. And yes, we're in this resistance area. And the other thing is the Dow has not made a new high where the S&P and the NASDAQ have. I don't know if that's going to mean anything long term. So, we've been trading within this reverse triangle like the S&P. And, then you see how. Usually, this is a megaphone top, and it's, with the word top in it, it suggests the market's going to go lower. But this is not acting that way. So you ultimately draw your patterns and then defer to what the market is telling you. And if it, keeps going through the top of this pattern, then all of a sudden that's, that pattern is, it's not operating, or we could make a new high here and then, do one of these, it could still bust out of here, give a false look. But the path of least resistance right now in these indexes is still higher. Just going to keep looking back to gold because I've got some positions there, and it's kind of holding. On the low. So, again, afternoon on Friday, don't really suggest putting in positions, but, if we take out these lows, this thing could still just open up by the end of the day lower. But I do feel like this thing, is looking weak. See, Carrie says, wants to look at the EuroCAD weekly. And then I'll open it up to your questions. And again, you also had some other questions. I'll circle back to that too. So EuroCAD. Yeah, this is a tough one too. I think this is in actually a stealth bull market, but it's looking heavy at the moment. Heavy meaning, maybe a propensity to go lower. But this has really been, a case of, rising lows. So you can see we've kind of been hugging on this trend line, and, we've had these, higher lows, which, is consistent with a bull market. But, look, if we start taking this out, this all of a sudden could, give way. So, we're obviously trading also at a resistance area. So here are the lines, support and resistance again. And then I just look at how the market, behaves. I mean, there's a lot of weight here that built up. This does look like, if you look at the daily, it looks like a double top. That may or may not translate. I mean, you may just see one of these things, but I don't know. It's still, this is a tough one. There's a lot of resistance here, but you've also got higher lows, which are consistent with a rising market. So, like I said, it does look heavy here. It looks like, the weight is wants to push this thing lower. So I'll be watching this, but more than likely not. It's got to, clear through all of this history too. So that's the other thing. Like I said, I try and visualize putting on a trade and say to myself, can I see this thing kind of falling out of the sky through all of this stuff? And I think that would be difficult. So I think this is just going to be messy and maybe find its way up again. But, maybe not. If this thing starts rolling over, I mean, certainly here, if we do roll over and come through, 150, even then, I mean, this is a rising thing where you've seen, this looked like a double top here, beautiful double top, and boom, new highs. So I think that this is likely to be the same, bit of a trap where we come and then, or not. You know, this does look like it's really rolling over for good. You know, I'll check it out. But, you know, EuroCAD, by and large, very difficult to play. So this is what, you know, kind of looks like on the daily. And again, kind of looks like a classic, you know, top. And again, we see all these patterns all the time. And then, you know, we have to decide, you know, what is the governing pattern. But to me, this is still kind of really a rising market. I mean, markets do turn. So, you know, if this was a double top, then we should have seen this, you know, kind of lower lows, lower highs, and that. You know, instead, you know, and maybe it will. Maybe this will do it this time, where now you have, you know, a triple top. So this is a very interesting kind of, you know, inflection point. And this is kind of where I kind of defer to the market. Now, again, sometimes it's not visual, but, you know, sometimes way back in another thing, like this guy, to my mind, is where the support is. You know, a hair under here. So I think that sometimes we get these key reversals and they put a, you know, an underpinning in the market. So I would certainly watch that. And if, you know, we look like we're coming through here and we do come through here, then, you know, I would take a look. But right here, I don't know. It's very difficult. It's very difficult, but I just feel like, yeah, that we're at a support area right here at this 153, 154. And, you know, let's see what happens. You know, on its face, you know, this thing looks bearish. So we should be able to see this thing do this. But, you know, if we start just digging in, I don't know. This thing looks like the euro pound, just very, you know, kind of like this, where you're just going to get chewed up. So I would kind of I'm just going to put it on my watch list for now. Sagan says, you know, my last couple of traders were the stop losses considered too tight. So, you know, I put the stop losses quite a ways away, and the market volatility has been so extreme that, you know, it's, and, you know, probably for now, the stop losses should be, you know, outside of the, you know, the weekly bands. But even like pound, you know, pound New Zealand, you know, got outside of its, so you can see the daily here. So sometimes, you know, I said in, and I don't think we looked at the pound New Zealand on the daily. So, you know, here is what I think is an even Adam double bottom. We looked at the pound New Zealand earlier on the weekly, where I showed you the operating or the governing double bottom, you know, many years ago at the 167, and it's, you know, been by and large in an uptrend since then. And so at the 190, you know, we grabbed a foothold at these lows. And then, like, I made a video the other day and I called this a stake in the ground. Sometimes the market just plants a stake in the ground, plants a stake in the heart of the sellers, and indicates, you know, where, you know, something is inclined to go. So yes, I mean, to your point again, I mean, you can see, you know, I was trying to catch the pound New Zealand a number of times in these time frames, but you just had enormous, you know, volatility, and probably should have put my stops, you know, under this, you know, weekly low, which held. So in retrospect, yeah, the stops were, you know, too tight, but, you know, they were still quite a bit of, you know, ways away. So I thought, you know, once it kind of got going here, that it was going to, you know, keep going. And it had one more, you know, kind of shakeout. And now, you know, you have these two reversals right here. So yeah, you've got to get through a lot of noise here, but to my mind, this is a great risk reward trade. Getting long here, you can even put your risk, I think, under today's low. And sometimes you just see things that this is where, you should put more, a bigger position with a higher risk. Typically, I advocate you, risk a 0.5%, per trade. This, depending on your disposition, your pocketbook, I would, put 1.5, even 2% risk per trade on this. It just feels like, again, if this is a bottom, that at some point we're going to find daylight here. And all of these, reversals, you have, this bottom right along the weekly bottom, found exactly the low of a prior week. And, during that, Brexit, concern, and then Tory victory, whatever, this, to my mind, put a stake in the ground. And these key reversals point in the direction they want to go. Now, sometimes it takes a while. We saw in the euro, the key reversals at 120 took several weeks before the euro started rolling over. But I don't think this is going to take a couple weeks. I think that, we have a reversal even today. So yes, we've got a lot of noise to clear through, a lot of underbrush, but I think this market is ready to take flight. So Faye, I don't understand why that happened. You'll have to send an email to our support team. I'll put the email in the chat box here. So Rosario, when you ask me a question, please reference the instrument you're referencing, because sometimes I don't see the questions until I've gone well past what I've been looking at. So Eugene says, why does gold say 1901 and my MetaTrader says 1906? I'll check right now. I'll check my MetaTrader. What is gold? Gold is at 1901. And my MetaTrader indicates that it's trading at 1901.60. So I do not know. Neil says, I'm currently short pound Australian. Do you think I need to wait as I see this going lower, especially with what's happening in the UK? So Neil, whatever's happening in the UK has been priced into the market. The market is a discounting effect. I mean, the Tories already were elected, so all of those, questions, were allayed. And what's going to happen with COVID? What's going to happen with Brexit? I can't answer that question, but it looks like the market has voted. And right now we put in a bottom on the weekly and the daily. If it goes through 194, this bottom will be confirmed. So right now, if you're short, this looks like a tough job. You had this key reversal right here, kind of a stake in the ground. And now the market looks like it's, getting firmer, consistent with this underlying pattern. So I don't look at the news. The market is the news. Faye wants to look at Euro versus Swiss. Tough deal. I mean, this has been in a long term. I mean, let's go to the monthly and, that'll put that in perspective. So I kind of thought maybe we could have broken out of this log jam, had a little surprise rally, but this is going right back in the direction of its long-term trend. And, it looks like it's going to go a lot lower over time, albeit, this is a monthly chart. So it could take, this was, collectively, whatever, 2 years here just to do this. So the market takes its time here, but yeah, this is going lower. Look, this is a tough one. All of the indicators look like, I thought maybe we could come out of this little thing, have a surprise rally. You do still have these, higher lows and, higher highs. So it's a bit tricky here. I don't know if I would short it here. But I would just leave this one alone. The path of least resistance is lower. Now if we kind of clean above these highs, you may just get a good spring coil out of here, but it's not looking that way. All right. Any other questions? Joe says, hi, Mark, great session. Can we look at the FTSE? Yes. Yeah, so the FTSE, in contrast to the American markets, looks weaker to me. I think maybe you asked that question a few weeks ago, and this still looks like it's going to roll over. You have all of these tops. It broke the neckline, had a retest of the neckline right here, and now it's like, losing steam. We've got this kind of channel going on, and just feels like this thing wants to roll over. We may have it come in another movement up here, but I don't put a lot of stock just in, well, yeah, it does not look so good. So you've been kind of trading in this channel. And again, if the market starts indicating that it's going to circle out of here, we may get another move higher, but I don't know. This just kind of has a tired look to it. It just feels like it wants to and fits and start roll over. Joe says, how low do I think it may go? I don't know. This would imply back to the lows or lower. Let me see. Sometimes I don't have it set up where I can get a great. So even on the monthly, this kind of looks pretty. So again, this is the thing where if something looks like something, it should do something. And if it doesn't, so you kind of have like this head and shoulders look here, which implies this. But if the market starts doing this, that to me automatically, suggests something else. So this does look like it's, going to roll over, but this is difficult. Whenever you get this kind of short squeeze and, trap down here, it really maybe does trap all of those, bears. So I think this is kind of in the middle of the tennis court, and you got to kind of watch how it behaves. On the surface, it does look rather bearish, which would imply, kind of a long way down. So I don't know. I just see how it kind of behaves right in here. Yeah, but it feels heavy. But if it starts acting up, so yeah, my instinct just says that this just feels heavy and that it should go lower. But you've got all this price history. Yeah, so yeah. On the surface, it looks lower. Hamish says, is the DAX looking like the like the FTSE? No. You see the DAX is all the way at the highs again. Probably a lot of it is, how these nations are handling COVID. Although, the U.S. has not done a great job and our indexes are at the highs. So it's all about the Fed stimulus, all of that stuff. Any other questions? How are you guys doing? I know this has been a tough October. I've also tried to catch this pound New Zealand a bunch of times. I, kind of bought it again today. I'm in pound Australian. I'm in gold, and hopefully I'll recover. I'm down about 10% in the last 6 weeks or so. Michael wants to look at New Zealand versus Canadian. And, in the long term, there's a question in my mind whether we were going to bust this pattern or now we're going to go consistent with this pattern. So in the long term, we've had this operating, governing, double top and this set of complex head and shoulders, and this recent thrust may be just another one. So during the pandemic, we thrust consistent with all these bear patterns. We thrust below the neckline, but it was just, a giant, bear trap where all of the bears chasing this thing, were trapped, just got a hair under here, and now it's back, in the direction. But, it looks like if we reassault this, then we may get some traction. So right now we broke above the neckline and, had an open question whether this was going to be a busted pattern. So you can see we just coil here, and let's see how we, come out of this coil. Got this symmetrical triangle going on, and if we, continue, coming out of here, consistent with this pattern, it looks like it could go lower. On the other hand, start coming in. So kind of really a lot of these, it's been difficult trading. I mean, there's a lot of things, but this looks pretty heavy and likely to go lower, consistent with these long-term. Sorry, I thought that was the weekly. This is the weekly. So you can see the double top, the complex head and shoulders, and now more recently, this double top. So I think if we clear the neckline of this top, that it looks like we go back down. And so we have an inside weak bar. You can see the trading range from low to high sits within the high and low of the previous week. So I call this an inside weak bar. And to me, this is just a compression. It's just a storing of energy. And now, you have to surmise where that energy is going to uncork. And it looks like, the direction's lower, the pattern's lower, and it's likely to uncork to the downside. So I would, sneak in a sell stop, somewhere underneath here, underneath the weekly low, and let the market do all the work for you. So, next week the market takes off. That's a, beautiful thing. No harm, no foul. If on the other hand, the market puts you in, I think this thing is likely to, bear fruit. So with an inside bar, I don't really care where it closes. If it, closed where it is, it's closing on the low. But, even if it closed, in the middle or the high, I don't really look at the high and low of an inside bar. To me, all it represents is a storing of energy. What I do look at is the price action, within the pattern. So right here, made a new high, close on the low. Made a new high, close on the low. So that to me suggests that is the pattern. You have a pattern and you have the price action. And whenever I see both, then it's like go to town because the risk has basically been taken out of this trade by virtue of these key reversals. The market, these guys are pointing, in the direction that this wants to go. This reversal pointed in the direction. This reversal pointed in the direction. So when you have both the reversal and the pattern, and then you have the price action, that's everything that I look for. And so to my mind, it's a no-brainer. Put a sell stop here, and let's see how it goes. So Michael says, thanks, confirms my short. So yeah, good on you, Michael. I had an open question, as to whether, because this thing, broke this neckline by just a little bit, was this going to translate to a, kind of a busted pattern? But these governing patterns are so powerful. This double top, these head and shoulders are so, pervasive. And here you have another one. So I think that we're likely to kind of sneak back again. Which, pound New Zealand going higher, New Zealand, US going lower, suggests that the New Zealand dollar is, likely to weaken. So, let's see how we go. Still got kind of higher lows in this pattern. This looks like a double top head and shoulders, but you kind of have this higher lows going on. So if this thing keeps, going higher, I'd be a little bit suspicious of that. So like I said, this is an inside bar closing on the high. And if you think that this thing is going to drop, you could put a sell stop underneath here and be pretty safe. If this thing just keeps going higher, then you're not going to be put in. But if it does break, you could be put into a good trade. Hamish says, I'm seeing a correlation between the US indexes and gold. I don't know how you're seeing that. The indexes are on a new high, and gold is substantially off its high. The old high of gold is almost 2,100, and we're at 1,900 now, and the indexes are on the high. So I don't know if you mean as the indexes are making new highs, gold is making lower lows. So maybe that's a correlation you're indicating. I don't really try and make those. It kind of gets dangerous because sometimes they will correlate, but it might take 3 weeks or 3 months, and do a lot of other things in between. So I just try and work with really what's right in front of me. Try not to make it too complicated. So a lot of you are saying it's been a tough month this month. Hey, that happens. I've been, had a probably pretty straight run from February through now. Really, good markets. I'm down about 10%, but my account is probably up over 200%. So, I just take it in stride. And frankly, it's like, to me, this just suggests that I'm getting closer to a good trade, that these things have been working themselves out, thrashing around. And, now I'm really, ready to hit gold pretty hard, and probably these pound New Zealand, pound Australian pairs. And, by next week, it could be a whole other story. So the half the month has been crap, been stopped out on a bunch of trades. And if you take my guidelines and you put a 0.5%, 0.75% risk on a trade, and even if you lose 10 trades and you're down 5 to 10%, I can make that back on one trade. If I'm right about this gold and gold goes to 1750 or 1700, I'm going to make a boatload. Alternatively, if pound New Zealand starts turning around, I'll make a boatload on that. So we'll see. Pound New Zealand looks, I don't know. I want to see how this thing closes, because kind of got this rounding top looking thing, and I don't know. I want to see how this thing closes. Pound Australian actually looks a lot better. So actually, to my elite members, I sent out a buy stop above this key reversal high, 182.01. Nothing to write home about, but we're about 40 pips higher. And let's see. I mean, this is a huge resistance area. We've got this reversal here. If this thing starts failing and crapping out, but I think, look, it's, again, I try and take, this is what I do. I play these scenario games. The path of least resistance to me, seems higher. Yes, there is a lot of resistance in this area. But if I have to now say, okay, this thing looks like, double top, now I get short. I mean, that looks like it's going to be really hard stuff to get through. It's hard to picture coming through all of this and this. So to my mind, the path of least resistance is still looks higher to me. It still looks like a double top, double bottom. Now, it has to go through this 84 to confirm. So it could very well, just crap out here. But I don't know. I have a hard time picturing that. I have a much easier time picturing that. So I play these visualization games all day long and draw, every scenario and see which scenario looks reasonable. And Christian wants to look at oil. So yeah, I mean, after months and months and months, I've been kind of straight up, and then this month, I guess it's pre-election. You've had, the elections in the UK, which created all kinds of, turmoil there, and there was just a lot of volatility. So got stopped out on a bunch of trades, and for the first half of October, it sucked. The month's not over. And that's the thing about trading. You've got to just, if you think it's going to be straight up, like some of these turbo, EAs, expert advisors, they show these charts going straight to the sky. It's just not realistic. I could have days, weeks, months where I'm not making money. January and February, didn't make any money. And then February, all hell broke loose, and I took my account up like 200%. So it's really about money management, and you really have to have a system and a methodology that says, can I absorb 10 losing trades in a row? And I think I had that this month. And if you put a 0.5% risk on each trade, you're down 5%. If you put a little bit more, maybe you're down 10%. And if you, to my mind, take a 1% risk on gold or 2% risk on gold, and it goes to $1,700, you'll make much more than that back. And that's kind of how I operate. It's like, to me, it's not the winning trade percentage. So I've been as low as, in the 30s, having 37% winning trades. and having monster months. So just, guide your risk accordingly. So oil, I don't know. I mean, it's been going up. We have this little funky bottom here. I don't know. It could be a trap, go higher. I would certainly watch this area, this 35. It's hard to say with any kind of precision. We had this trap, the short squeeze. We're just messing around this neckline right here, this major, bear pattern here. So we're kind of around the neckline, and typically, you can retest the neckline, maybe even get above there. But I don't know. I would still ultimately look for this thing to fail, but it could, just keep motoring. This is kind of a weird cup and handle. So I don't know. I mean, it looks like, look, the path of least resistance is still a little bit higher, although you could find a trap somewhere in here, or it could just keep going. So I don't know. I'm not trading oil right now. And if you're an oil trader, I mean, you're still kind of below this high. So it looks like it's, bottomed here, but, you still have to take that high out. So I don't know. It could be a tricky area in here. I have no real opinion, but you are just, trading right around this neckline. So, you could get a little bit above it. Typically I don't trust things that just start with one thing, but now you got this, and that could provide another launch. So I don't know. It's kind of holding for now. It was a short squeeze, and when you get a short squeeze, they don't let the shorts out. They don't give you any chance to get out. So yeah, this could still go a little bit higher. Gerald says, thank you for sharing your wisdom thus far. I've been telling my clients and peers about you. Thanks for the insights and your honest commentary too. Thank you for that, Gerald. Yeah, I try and be, even-handed, and I don't walk on water. Certainly not this month. It's been difficult, but again, a couple trades could just turn this thing around. Michael says, is it pretty common for your broker to let you trade leverage for everything but gold and silver? So depends where you are. Even in the United States, you can't even trade gold and silver with FX brokers. I have a broker that gives me actually increased leverage for, gold and silver. So when I took my silver trades earlier this year, I had pretty substantial leverage and made a boatload. Selena says, I find I'm more confident on short-term trading than long-term trading. And so I don't really characterize myself as a short-term trader or a long-term trader. Whatever I'm trading, I'm looking for a move. And sometimes when the market's not kind of giving you much and it's really more of a trading range thing, the minimum move I'll look for is at least 150 pips. I'm not going to sit in front of my screen and try and carve out 27 pips. That's just not my thing. So I'll look for something on the daily that could translate to, an intra move. It could be 1 day, 3 days where I get a good pop. Or, if I look at a bigger picture like gold, I'm looking for, bigger things on gold. I really feel that this thing could come out of here, go to 1750. So yeah, but it's not easy. It's going to go in fits and starts. So this triangle, whenever you get these triangles, they take their time. We've seen with the dollar yen, it's been in a triangle for 3 years now, bouncing around. So I expect this to go to 1750, but I don't think it's going to be easy. You're going to come here, bounce there, come here, bounce there, etc. Um, if you just look for thrusts, if you're shorter term, this, key reversal could, translate to certainly something, down in here, 1880, somewhere in there. So again, I'm short term and long term. So short term, see that if I take a trade, it's likely that, I'll get out somewhere in here because there's some history here. So I'll get out around, 1880 or something like that, reevaluate, look for another move higher, get short there, on and on. And then if it starts to break, like if we're right here, then, it's like load up, back up the money truck and, look for a good sprint. So it really, look, I just look for moves that'll translate into, 150 pips, sometimes 300. You've seen me go on, things where I've taken 1,200 pips out of, pound New Zealand on multiple open trades. So, but you've got to find where your confidence level is. To me, it all starts with, kind of drilling down what, where a good risk reward play is. And, if you take a shot and you're wrong, then, you just dust yourself off and wait for the next one. Over time, I think I have a descending pattern here. I have what looks like to be a head and shoulders here. We look like we have a key reversal here. We'll have to see how the day ends. And so to my mind, to sneak a sell stop under here and kind of, see where it goes, it could, yield me a quick 150 pips or so. So I look at, short-term possibilities within, the long term and try and, see what's kind of going on in the long term, see what the picture is, and, start positioning myself. I start formulating a plan. I start, for me, I just hone in on like one or two things. Pound Australian, gold right now are things that to me look like reasonable risk reward opportunities. Long pound Australian, short, and I've got a pretty tight stop on pound Australian. And I'll see where this ends up today. I mean, I have to look at the closing bar. I am short now, short at 1909. And I want to see where this thing ends up. I mean, if we end up, back in the middle of the bar or something like that, I may just change it. But right now, and especially if we kind of keep going lower, and by the end of the day, we look even stronger. Like this is even a bigger key reverse. Let me use another tool here. Let's say we even go lower, and it looks like even a bigger reversal. Then to me, it's kind of a no-brainer, kind of going short into next week. And again, to Gan's point, I would, if it's closed on the low like that, wait for it to kind of pop up a little bit, and then, it's going to be kind of rough cruising through some of these areas. 1880 to 1885 areas, pretty crowded. Then there's some, support or noise right here around 1865. But I see, kind of a clean shot there, maybe a bounce, and lower. But yeah, so you've got to kind of formulate your comfort level, but just, start with a plan. And for me, it just starts with a structure, a pattern. Then I drill it down to, an individual, so you have a descending triangle, you have a head and shoulders, you have a key reversal, and then you give it a shot. You sell it here and see what happens. If it, goes up there, get stopped out, take a 0.5%, and, look for the next one. So it's just been difficult finding, good trades. in October, just because the volatility, around certain price areas, has been intense. So the market's kind of gone everywhere and nowhere. Not my favorite markets, but you never know that until you kind of look back and see the whirlwind you were in. Rosario wants to look at Australian, Canadian, and then I think I'll end it there. So yeah, it looks like these things hit some, key resistance points. Again, it looked like, these were going to turn into, busted patterns. And I was even theorizing that this looked like an inverted head and shoulders. But, when things start, breaking out of, whatever you're looking at, then that's a sign that it's not happening. So you can see the dominant patterns in this, have been these patterns. And we basically, through the catalyst of the pandemic, just thrust back above the breakout area, the neckline. And now we've kind of got this rounding, double top looking thing that looks like, it just broke this week. So I don't know. Again, one guy that stands out to me is this guy right here. This kind of key reversal, may hold somewhere in here for now, but 93, 92 and a half area. But this does look like it's, wants to kind of roll over. It's just, I don't know. It's just difficult seeing the path, how much. I mean, I can't see this thing going back to the lows. That was pretty extreme, so, we may just kind of go a little lower and then turn back. I don't know. It looks like a pretty clean looking, topping formation. I don't know if it will really bear fruit. So on a face value, I would, play this double top inside bar. You sell, put a sell stop there and, and see what it, it gives you. Yeah, it definitely looks like New Zealand dollar and Australian dollar starting to turn lower against a lot of these pairs. I would take this one. I don't know. I see this one kind of clear, although Australian has been a lot weaker than New Zealand. So, if that continues, then Australian Canadian would be the pair to choose. I just visually see the New Zealand dollar, Canadian just in a more organized way. But it looks like the Australian dollar versus Canadian dollar would be the one to take. Again, says no problem. Again, I don't know that I want to get into that. It gets very complex and muddled. And it's just a function of, if you see a formation that you really think is going to translate and you just don't know where to put the stop because the vol, like the pound New Zealand, you can do some alternative things that I don't know that I really want to get too much into the weeds with today. So to me, it's going to be really important how this thing closes, this pound New Zealand, because I mean you do have this resistance here and it's kind of tailing off right now. So I'm kind of not impressed with this, but it may be meaningless. Again, this is why it's probably good to focus on the discipline of the weekly thing rather than, because you get a lot of looks and then the market comes out of nowhere. But I don't know. This is not really impressing me right now. It's not. following through. So, we'll see. So yeah, I want to see how we close today. You can see the weekly may turn down a little bit. So the close is going to be really important. And it does look like, how New Zealand's struggling a little bit. Whereas pound Australian is, really doing okay. So, yeah, to my mind, looking at gold. And let's see how we go here. This may be a trap too, because this is a symmetrical triangle and a descending triangle, and so if we start coming out the other side of this thing could be a neutral triangle. So this is one of the things I've learned to look for for traps. So if this is a descending wedge, what I would expect is that this would retest the low, bounce off the low, and then retest the low. But you can see sometimes there is a potential for a fake out where you make a low and then you make a move lower and then it doesn't quite come to the low. And if this didn't come to the low, this low and start sneaking out here, I would get long. So I hope you understand that distinction. So for this to play out on the downside, I'd want it to hit this low multiple times, like dollar yen. And then, once it's hit multiple times and then it's looking to go like now, that's when you hit it hard. And I've learned this through hard knocks experience and paying a lot of money for, fake out moves, is that, if you get a look and it doesn't quite come down to the bottom and then it starts sneaking out, you can really, you can buy that. I just kind of have a hard time visualizing this thing turning around big time unless, there was some driving force, because, you just got all of these lower highs. So, for it to just take off like this, it could. It could. I mean, these things could turn into two big bottoms and you see that. But right now, it just seems like it's dribbling lower. And so that's what I look for. Now I draw my structure, and then I see how the market, wants to go. And right now my thesis is lower, but if all of a sudden, we close here today and, we get going and now we're out of here, then, it's a whole new ballgame. So let's see what the market tells us. I want to see how we close today. ATN says, thanks, Mark. As always, very interesting and insightful. I learn a lot every time, even if last few weeks were really tough. ATN, thank you. Keep going. And thank you, guys, again, for all your support. Just stick with it. Life is a process. That's what I tell my son. He sees, he's grown up seeing everybody, I've watched, tennis, and 3 guys have taken all of the trophies for the last 10 years. My son doesn't realize the sacrifice and the commitment and the process, and thousands of other guys who are trying to bang down the door. And it's not easy, but it's all about commitment and discipline, and it's a process. Life is a process. What hasn't been a process? So to have a difficult few weeks, that's just the way it goes. But I could come out of it on one trade. So Lawrence says, thank you. Been losing, but learning, and I will get there. Rosario says, if you look at I'm not sure what you're saying. Good day says, thank you. Mark is a process. You've paid the price, and we are privileged to have a tutor in you. Thank you once again. Good day says, life is a process, and that goes without saying. So it's as Rocky said, it's not how hard you get hit, but can you get up? And how many times can you get up after getting punched in the face? And that's what it's all about. Hamish says, thanks. Last couple of weeks have been tough. Thanks for the session. Have a great weekend. All right, guys. Thanks a lot, and we'll see you next time.